I read a shit ton of books in the month of March and read about so many inspiring and incredible women throughout history and of present. Howdy hey cowpokes, it's Conway Titty here, and I'm back with another monthly book recap. This month is March, and the theme for March is Women's History Month. I read books that were by women, for women, and anyone who also identifies as a woman. This whole process, I was really intaking and consuming women experiences and stories. I believed it was very important to make sure that I consumed a lot of women's history, especially during these times, especially this year with what's going on in the world. It was such a beautiful month for me to overindulge myself into fascinating historical fictions, historical books, nonfictions, memoirs. The genres are endless. As always, if you do enjoy these monthly book recaps, please make sure to follow me on Goodreads or Fable. Fable is way better, by the way. It's like Goodreads, but better. The aesthetic is just so much more pleasing, and I use that quite a bit. Then you'll get to know what I'm currently reading, what I have read, and what I want to read. Without further ado, let's get into these women. The first book that I read starting off Women's History Month was Yes Please by Amy Poehler. This was a humorous and heartfelt memoir that blends personal stories, her life, advice, and kind of behind-the-scenes glimpse into her career in comedy. She's best known for her roles in Saturday Night Live and Parks and Rec, but Poehler also shares tales from her childhood, early days in improv, and her rise to fame, all with her signature wit. The book touches on themes like motherhood, ambition, friendship, and the struggles of being a woman in comedy, all while it encourages readers to be confident, to work hard, and to say yes please to all of life's opportunities. I rated this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a hilariously blunt memoir by one of the funniest ladies to exist. My only wish was that it was a bit longer. However, that I know that writing a book is extremely and insanely hard. So a big thumbs up for Amy's brain, because she talks about it a lot throughout the book of how difficult it was for her to write this and how much she wanted to include, how much she didn't want to include. And it is a really hard balance. The audiobook was also a really fun add-on to an already hilarious read. And I truly believe that every memoir audiobook should be read in the author's voice if possible. It just makes it much more personable, and I really loved all her special guests that were included. There's quite a few, so if you have the opportunity, listen to the audiobook while you're also reading. All in all, it was a very fantastic memoir, very funny. And also, if you have seen Inside Out, you know that Amy Poehler is the voice of Joy, and it really felt like Joy was reading the book to you. Well, duh, because it's her voice. Next up is Rage Becomes Her. This is a powerful feminist manifesto that explores how women's anger is often dismissed, feared, or suppressed in society, and how actually reclaiming that anger can be a force for personal and political transformation. It also kind of argues that women's rage is not only valid, but it is necessary, and it's rooted in centuries of systemic inequality, and offers it as a tool for empowerment. Blending personal stories, research, and cultural critique, the book encourages women to stop apologizing for their emotions and to embrace anger as a catalyst for change. I rated this a 4.25 out of 5 stars. It really should be a reading requirement for everyone. It's also not an easy read by any means, so please take your time and focus, because this book really does have so much to offer. I would also like to note that it probably is a book you would want to read more than once, especially reading it the first time. You might miss a lot of things that you don't fully understand yet until you do read it a second time. After that, I arrived with my very first did not finish book. This was The Making of Biblical Womanhood: How the Subjugation of Women Became Gospel Truth by Beth Allison Barr. This was bad. This was bad for me. And to kind of give you a summary of it, as a historian and pastor's wife, Barr challenges the idea that biblical womanhood, the belief that women are divinely designed for submission and to be domesticated, it's actually rooted in scripture. Instead, she argues it's cultural construct shaped by historical forces like patriarchy, church tradition, and misinterpretations of the Bible over centuries. By examining medieval Christian history and her own personal journey, Barr calls for a rethinking of gender roles in the church and advocates for true biblical equality. Now, let me tell you why I DNF'd this book. I rated it a 1.5 out of 5 stars. I thought it was absolutely awful. Here's why. As someone who grew up religious and in the heart of the Bible Belt, the whole book and story seemed so obvious. And honestly, like, this whole concept clicked for me by the time I was in middle school. The whole religious experience seemed fake and overdone, and yes, of course, ran by men. I had that figured out. And I honestly could not imagine going 40 years of my life and then realizing, wow, what's going on? It's almost just like men made up religion to control women. Like, I could not fathom going that long in my life and figuring it out then. And honestly, I couldn't get past chapter 5. I really did try. It just was a horrible read, especially if you can see through all the religious bullshit. And honestly, before even reading, I thought it was gonna be more about like a historical concept and not just like, I still believe in God, blah, 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 modern day Christian woman, blah, 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 blah. Like, good for you, not for me. It definitely was not a great read by any means. It honestly just really seemed like the entire time she was just saving face with religion, and I just can't get down with that. DNF'd. To kind of lighten the mood, I took off with another comedy legend, Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. This was a hilarious, heartfelt memoir that blends her personal stories with sharp observations about her life, career, and womanhood. Fey recounts her journey from the nerdy kid in Pennsylvania to becoming the head writer at SNL. Saturday Night Live, and then the creator/star in 30 Rock. Along the way, she dishes out witty insights on topics like beauty standards, motherhood, sexism in the workplace, and what it's really like to work in comedy as a female, just like Amy Poehler did. The book is equal parts funny and an empowering showcase, and Fey's signature blends of like self-deprecating and a razor-sharp humor, which is everything I love about Tina Fey. I rated this a 4.5 out of stars, and with any memoir that is read by the author, it's a must listen to on the audiobook, even while reading. Like I said, if you can, always try to listen to the audiobook. And honestly, I loved the journey and would love an updated book from Tina because she has really done so much since 30 Rock that it would be incredible to kind of have a peek behind the curtain. And to continue on to another female comedian, Bedwetter by Sarah Silverman. She is one of my favorite comedians. Bedwetter is darkly funny and brutally honest memoir that dives into Sarah's life, from her awkward childhood to her rise in comedy. She shares very much like candid stories about bedwetting in her teens, battling depression, and finding her voice in the male-dominated comedy world. The book blends raunchy humor with her surprisingly kind of tender reflections, and it kind of shows how Silverman's pain and embarrassment shaped her fearless boundary-pushing style. It's definitely equal parts cringy, heartfelt, and absolutely hilarious. I think my favorite part about this memoir, beside it being read and written by Sarah Silverman, it is that it is truly just like a bunch of stories. There's no really structure to the book. Sarah just kind of rambles on about memories and experiences, and it really makes it feel way more personal than going from here I was 5, here I was 10, here I was 15 and 20. Like, she really does go all over the place. And like I said, if you can listen to the audiobook, she does her voices for her family, voices for other people. Sarah is just hilariously funny, and you don't know who Sarah Silverman is, please just go into a giant deep dive. She is absolutely one of my top favorite comedians of all time. After that, I kind of leaned into this really beautiful picture book called Legendary Ladies, 50 Goddesses to Empower and Inspire by Anne Sheen. This is a beautifully illustrated book that celebrates 50 powerful goddesses from mythologies all around the world. Each goddess is presented with a vibrant portrait and a short profile that kind of highlights her story, her cultural background, and her empowering qualities, which would be like strength, wisdom, creativity, and compassion, things like that. The book also kind of blends mythology with the history and kind of gives some like self-help inspiration, which makes it a very uplifting and visually engaging read for anyone who's interested in the feminine power and global myths. I rated this a 4.75 out of 5. I absolutely loved the illustrations that were paired for each legendary lady. It was very sweet and very inspiring read. Each legendary lady had a quick but very informative summary, which was perfect for anyone to learn, especially if you have no idea about a bunch of these. I'm a big history buff. I'm really like special niches into a lot of mythology, so this really was like a home run for me. I absolutely loved it, and the drawings were just gorgeous. It's definitely a book for all ages, so feel free to read it to your little ones. Speaking of legendary ladies, the next book I read was Trixie and Katya's Guide to Modern Womanhood by Trixie and Katya. It is a humorous and unconventional lifestyle book by drag superstars Trixie Mattel and Katya Zamolodchikova. I can never get it right unless I'm singing the song. If you know, you know.
Katerina Petrovna Zamolodchikova, but your dad just calls me Katya.
It blends satire with self-help, and it kind of offers an absurd yet oddly insightful advice on like beauty and homemaking, relationships, and etiquette, all through kind of like a glamorous and chaotic lens of their drag personas. The book is kind of equal parts a parody and a actual celebration of womanhood. I rated it a 5 out of 5 stars, and I have been a Trixie and Katya fan since the very beginning, and I finally got around to reading / listening to their books. And honestly, like I said, despite the sarcasm and the funny banter, they truly have a lot of like actually really good advice. It was like, I was pleasantly surprised with how kind of heartfelt they made it, and it was kind of a win for the girls, gays, and theys, you know? Finishing that, I moseyed on over to Unbecoming a Lady. It is a humorous and sharply researched nonfiction book that explores the history of women who defied societal expectations in the Victorian era and beyond. With wit and irreverence, it dives into the lives of scandalous women, which were like rule breakers, rebels, outcasts, people like that, who dared to step out the rigid roles of ladylike behavior. It has a lot of historical facts and cheeky commentary, which makes it for a very entertaining and enlightening read, and kind of really showcases the double standards of the past. I actually have a tattoo on my middle finger that says "like a lady," so when I'm flipping people off, it's like a lady. Don't look at my nails. I didn't put my press-ons on and I forgot, and they are nubbies, okay? Don't look at them. We're celebrating women, you can't judge me. Anyways, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I really did enjoy this. It was an incredibly wicked read. The chapters really flowed. It was short and concise. The information is very funny and memorable at times. And I enjoyed it way more than I expected and would have read many more chapters after that. The only downside and the only reason I took off a half a star is because it wasn't long enough, but that's not a reason I should have made it a half a star. But I wish it was, because it was a really good book. I love reading about unladylike ladies. And speaking of unladylike ladies, after that was Lady Killers by Tori Telfer. This is a dark, witty, true crime book that profiles female serial killers from various eras and cultures. Telfer challenges the stereotype that serial killing is a male phenomenon by showcasing historical women who committed gruesome crimes, ranging from poisonings to dismemberments. And it has a chilling, calm, and kind of a cunning undertone. Each chapter dives into the women's stories, blending historical research with sharp and humorous commentary along the way. The book offers a feminist lens on crime, exploring how society has often overlooked or kind of romanticized murderous women. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I think it is a great read for those that really do love true crime, especially when it comes to the female murderers. I'm personally not heavy on true crime anything. It's really not my cup of tea, but this was still a very informative and fascinating read. Some of the ladies' stories were unique, but most of them were sort of in the poisoning their husbands kind of shtick. Overall, a decent read if you are into the true crime realm. Would highly recommend that for you. Off on another adventure of female comedians. Of course, I had to read Hello Molly by Molly Shannon. Ugh. Was this incredible. Another heartfelt and hilarious memoir from the beloved comedian and actress. In it, Shannon shares her journey from tragic childhood, losing her mother, her sister, and cousin in a car accident, to finding her voice in comedy and rising to fame on Saturday Night Live. The book blends laugh-out-loud stories with raw vulnerability as she opens up about her grief, resilience, her bold spirit, and the unconventional paths she took to make it in Hollywood. It is both inspiring and deeply human. I rated this a 100 out of 5 stars. Molly Shannon has been and continues to be one of my biggest girlhood inspirations. Easily. She is everything to me. She's giggles, she's love, she's strength. Molly is breaking the ceilings and doing it without a second thought. And I wish this book was also longer because I could stay hypnotized by her for days. This was so chaotically beautiful and raw and just perfectly Molly. And as soon as I got done with that, I went and watched Superstar and practically every other fucking movie that she starred in. I went on a whole Molly rabbit hole. I just love her so much, and this book was incredible. Speaking of another incredible read, this one is an absolute must-have. It is. It's Not Hysteria. Everything you need to know about your reproductive health, but we're never told, by Dr. Karen Tang. This is a comprehensive guide that addresses the persistent gender biases in modern healthcare. Dr. Tang is a board-certified gynecologist and a minimally invasive gynecological surgeon. She combines her medical expertise with historical context to highlight how women's health issues have been misunderstood and neglected over time. The book delves into common gynecologic conditions such as polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, endometriosis, fibroids, ovarian cyst, PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. I have that. It's absolutely awful. Dr. Tang emphasizes that these conditions are often misdiagnosed or dismissed, leading to the inadequate treatment and care. Beyond diagnosing and treating specific conditions, Dr. Tang provides readers with practical tools to advocate for their health. This includes symptom prompts and sample questions to discuss with your healthcare providers, aiming to kind of empower individuals and to take control of their reproductive health. The title, It's Not Hysteria, challenges the outdated notions that women's health complaints are exaggerated or purely psychological, which was a belief that was rooted in historical misconceptions. Dr. Tang's work seeks to dismantle these myths and promote a more informed and equitable approach to women's healthcare. Overall, the book serves as both an educational resource and a call to action, urging readers to recognize and address the systematic issues affecting women's health today. I obviously had to rate this a 5 out of 5 stars. It is a very detailed and very informative read, and honestly, it's a necessary read to learn anything and everything about women's bodies. I was truly surprised about the amount of things that I learned from this book. I thought I knew quite a lot. It is also extremely inclusive, and I love that it discussed everything. Not only talking about intersex people, talking about transgender people, it included a little variety of sexualities and gender, so you don't feel like it's only about the cisgendered female woman. Cisgender female woman? You know what I mean. I mostly check my books out at the library or use the Libby app, but this is a book I 100% need to get my hands on. Switching gears to the next book, Cassandra Speaks, When Women Are the Storytellers, The Human Story Changes by Elizabeth Lesser. A kind of summary of this book is that it is a powerful exploration of how history and culture have been shaped by stories told mostly by men, and kind of what might change if women were the storytellers. Lesser uses the myth of Cassandra, the Greek prophetess cursed to speak the truth but never be believed, as kind of a metaphor for how women's voices have been dismissed throughout history. The book blends personal narrative, historical analysis, and feminine insight to argue that if women's experiences and values, such as empathy, vulnerability, and collaboration, were more central in storytelling, leadership, and society, that the world would be more balanced and humane. It's both a call to action and a deeply reflective look at how reclaiming our narratives can transform not only individual lives, but also the broader culture. I rated this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I enjoyed the first part of the book. The second part was okay, and I found the third part to be very unnecessary for me. The third part is very much self-help aspects that I kind of already understand, but if you've never come across or you do need help, it's very beneficial. Overall, it was a decent read. It had lots of research mixed in, which I really enjoyed, and it had a lot of personal stories paired with the research, and that made it really enjoyable. After that, I really dove into a book that I had no idea what I was getting my hands on. I've seen this book everywhere. It's been all over TikTok. It's been all over Instagram. It's a book that you should definitely read. It's called I Who Have Never Known Man by Jacqueline Harpman. It's a haunting, philosophical, dystopian novel that follows a nameless young woman who has spent her entire life imprisoned underground with 39 other women. Unlike the others, she has no memories of the outside world. That's when the prison door mysteriously opens. The women escape into a barren, kind of post-apocalyptic, you know what I'm trying to say, post-apocalypse landscape. And as they kind of wander in search of meaning, survival, and answers, the narrator reflects on existence, identity, isolation, and what it means to be human in the absence of society, without love or history. The novel is quite eerie and deeply meditative. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. Like, wow. I read this in one sitting and could not get over that the bunkers reminded me of the shelter experiments in the Fallout games. If you don't know much about the Fallout vault lores, definitely go check it out. They have them like 1 through 100 and something, I think. I don't know, but each vault has a different kind of experiment going on, and this is what it really reminded me of. The story is lonely and full of emotion, and it really does grapple with life and death. It truly was a beautiful read, and I would highly recommend this to anyone and everyone. I think this is also a top 2025 read for me. On to another fantastic book, Cleavage by Jennifer Finley Boylan. This is a poignant and humorous essay that explores gender, identity, and transformation through the lens of the author's experience as a transgender woman. With wit and emotional honesty, Boylan reflects on the significance of cleavage, not just as a physical attribute, but as a symbol of femininity and societal perception and personal acceptance. This piece challenges stereotypes and invites readers to consider how we define ourselves and how others see us, blending the memoir with cultural commentary in Boylan's signature reflective style. I rated this also a 5 out of 5 stars. I related to so many parts in this book. Deep personal thoughts and feelings about life pre and post transition. It really was easy to be in their shoes. The chapters flowed, and I also read this one in one sitting. I really did enjoy this book, and I loved the perspective. It was extremely captivated, and also I highly recommend you guys check this one out. You think I'm gonna keep going with this list and not include another female comedian? Girl Walks Into a Bar by Rachel Dratch. This is a funny and candid memoir from the Saturday Night Live alum. The book starts with her post-SNL life, expecting a steady path in comedy and acting, but instead she finds herself in a series of kind of like awkward auditions and romantic misadventures. And just as she's settling into her single life in her 40s, an unexpected relationship turns into an even more unexpected pregnancy. Dratch's storytelling really does like blend her humor with heartfelt insights about aging, reinvention, and the surprising like throwaways of life. I rated this a 10 out of 5 stars, and I dearly love Rachel Dratch. And I am so glad that I got to thoroughly enjoy this one in one sitting as well. I read this and listened to the audiobook. And as I have said many times throughout this video, if you have a chance to listen to the audiobook when the author is reading, do it. It makes for an even more immersive experience. However, it was a quick read, but I did get to hear stories from her early improv days, then at SNL, her friendships, and then navigating her being a first-time mom in her 40s was incredible. Hopping over to another beloved female, Wildflower by Drew Barrymore. I've read a lot of memoirs this month if you guys haven't noticed. Wildflower is a heartfelt collection of autobiographical essays that chronicle her unconventional childhood, her rise to fame, and the journey into adulthood. With humor and honesty, Barrymore shares stories about being emancipated at 14, navigating Hollywood, becoming a mother, and finding her own path. It's not a traditional memoir, but rather a series of kind of like life snapshots that showcase her resilience, growth, and gratitude. I rated this, unfortunately, a 3.25 out of 5 stars. And audio listeners, beware. Drew screams. Like, screams. However, it was really funny, and I did love that part, but just know that she's like being Drew Barrymore in every sense of the word. Like, she's always so fun and bubbly and loud and expressive, so just know that she does scream in her book. But other than that, it was an interesting experience to hear her kind of talk about her life. The stories were all over the place, which is in Drew Barrymore fashion, and the book really does follow no structure, which made it even more like each chapter was kind of a short story. Overall, a really decent read. I wish she would have got more into her relationships with her mother and kind of like more about her childhood, but I know when people write their book, they only want to write about what they want to share, so I totally respect that aspect from her and completely understand. Now off to an incredible must read if you are a fan of country music. This is Her Country: How the Women of Country Music Became the Success That They Never Were Supposed to Be by Marissa R. Moss. Her Country is a compelling exploration of systemic barriers faced by women in the country music industry over the past 2 decades. Focusing on the careers of Casey Musgraves, Maren Morris, and Mickey Guyton, Moss delves into how these artists navigated a male-dominated landscape to redefine success on their own terms. Moss highlights the decline in female representation on country radio from a time when artists like Shania Twain and the Chicks dominated the charts to an era where women receive as little as 10% of radio play. Despite these challenges, Musgraves, Morris, and Guyton have achieved significant milestones. Musgraves with her genre-defying albums, Morris with crossovers like The Middle, and Guyton confronting racial biases with songs like Black Like Me. The book also examines the broader cultural and political dynamic within country music, addressing issues of gender, race, and sexuality. Moss, a Jewish woman from New York City, brings a unique perspective to Nashville's traditionally conservative scene, challenging the notion of who gets to tell the story of country music. Through meticulous reporting and personal insight, Her Country not only chronicles the struggles and triumphs of these artists, but also serves as a call to action for more inclusive and equitable music industry. And of course, I had to rate this infinity out of 5, and I have finally been able to get my greedy little paws on this book and sit down and read it. This is the book. This is the book. As someone who is heavily in the country music background, as an enthusiast, a fan, a friend, and as someone who has seen firsthand many excruciating times of what it's like with white men in country music, not having an eye batted at them, and then turn around and shun and shame and scoff at women in the same genre. Like, please don't even get me fucking started. This fucking book, I recommend this with love to everyone. And to all my country music girlies, my mutuals, my friends, my besties, I love y'all so much. And I will never, ever stop screaming your praises. Y'all deserve so much, and I am honored to have witnessed your journeys as you grow into stars. And for the people in the back, the girls, the gays, and the theys belong in country. Okay? Please read this book. It was very good. After reading such an insightful and amazing book that I rated an infinity and 5, I could not fathom the next book that I was going to pick up was going to be so incredible. And I mean a life-changing read. I read The Women by Kristen Hanna. And before I really get into this, I want to let you know the trigger warnings in this book is child loss, death, domestic violence, grief, murder, substance abuse, violence, war violence, suicide, ideations, attempts, etc. Is such a powerful historical fiction novel that follows the journey of Frankie McGrath, a young woman who becomes an army nurse during the Vietnam War. She's coming from a sheltered, very patriotic background, and Frankie is unprepared for the brutal realities of war. As she serves in Vietnam, she experiences deep trauma, loss, and camaraderie. When she returns home, she faces a society that denies her services and sacrifices, forcing her to fight a different kind of battle for recognition and healing. The novel explores themes of courage, sisterhood, and the hidden costs of war, especially for women who served. I rated this a 9 trillion out of 5 stars. I'm not even kidding, a 9 trillion. And there is not a number high enough to rate this book. And I only have one word after I read it was, damn. The moment I started I had to finish. I could not stop. My jaw dropped. I audibly gasped. There was moments that I had tears welling in my eyes. My heart raced, then broke, then mourned. My emotions were all over the place with this incredible piece. It was a shocking, very detailed story that was so accurate and gut-wrenching. And I will say this easily has been one of the best books I have ever read in my life. I was hooked and then stayed to get dragged along through the love, the despair, trauma, and life stories. The writing was intense, vivid, and immaculate. And I don't want to spoil anything because it's a very moving journey and everyone needs to experience it because it was just damn. And after I completely recovered from that read, which still to this day I think about almost daily and for sure weekly, I think that was a top read of 2025, and like I said, one of my top reads I've ever read in my life. I kind of scooched over to another book that was absolutely horrendous. It is My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I'm really not even gonna give you a summary of the book. I'm just going to kind of tell you what happens because it's not worth your time. And I rated it a 2 out of 5 stars. All right, this was almost a DNF, but everyone kept saying, just stick through it. And I really wish I would have just fucking stopped reading it and just looked up how the ending is. So here's a little spoiler. If you don't want to spoil the book, skip now. Okay, anyways, this is basically a story of a trust fund girly who does nothing but sleep, complain, sleep, and live in New York City. There is not an ounce of struggle or anything throughout this book. There's no plot, there's no story, really to the very last page of the book. Is it worth it? Absolutely not. Did I loathe getting through this? Yes. Would I recommend this to anyone? No. And if anyone needs any kind of further discussion about this book, this is from a Reddit thread by the user Once Upon a Lil Kiss. And here's the quote. There is basically 2 ways you can take the ending. 1, that the protagonist did finally grow some, that she appreciates that she can't do what she did and sleep through life, that life is meant to be lived even through all the horrible parts. Or 2, that even though all she's been through, her reaction to her friend dying in a massive attack is, wow, that's beautiful. Because she didn't learn much at all about caring for people, about people in general, and is still abnormally detached from humanity. That's it. That's the book. God awful. Do not recommend. I should have just rated it a -10 out of 5 stars because it was awful. Don't read it. It's not worth your time. And after having that disgust of a read in my palate, I really was like, let's lean into a history book that's gonna make me at least feel something better that I know is thoroughly written well. And that book was The Queens of Animation by Nathalia Holt. This book is a compelling group biography that uncovers the untold stories of the pioneering women who helped shape the golden age of Disney animation. In an era when women were largely confined to the ink and paint department, these trailblazers broke through gender barriers to contribute significantly to some of Disney's most iconic films. Holt focuses on 5 remarkable women: Bianca Majoli, Grace Huntington, Retta Scott, Sylvia Holland, and Mary Blair, who played crucial roles in the creation of classics like Snow White, Bambi, Cinderella, and Alice in Wonderland. Their imaginative storytelling, innovative artistry, and technical skills were instrumental in crafting the rich visuals and narratives that have become part of the American cultural canon. Through meticulous research and including accesses to the archival materials and personal interviews, Holt brings to light the personal and professional challenges that these women faced, from systemic sexism to personal hardships. Their resilience and contributions not only transformed the world of animation, but also paved the way for future generations of female artists and storytellers. The Queens of Animation is both an inspiring tribute to these unsung heroines and vital addition to the history of animation, offering a new perspective on creative forces behind Disney's enduring legacy. I gave this about a 3.75 out of 5 stars. It is a tumultuous journey of the lives of women animators, and there would not be the beautiful, colorful, and vivid animations without these women. They brought their kind of out-of-the-box thinking, the color, the talent to these studios, and hearing how they got treated and how most women were treated of the time is told so many times throughout their journey. They truly loved what they did though, and it really does show in the films, and that's basically the only reason most of them stayed. They created things that the men could never even dream of. It was a very educational read, had lots of details and explanations along the way. Would recommend if you're really into art or art history or anything of that nature. Hopping on to the next book, Reinventing Love. This book explores the concept of love and relationships in the modern world, particularly from the perspective of women navigating societal pressures and evolving expectations. The author critiques traditional romantic ideals, examining how these notions can limit women's independence and self-expression. Through an intersectional lens, she addresses the way in which women are encouraged to conform to outdated roles and how they can kind of redefine love on their own terms, creating healthier, more fulfilling connections. The book blends sociology, philosophy, and personal reflection to propose a shift in how love is understood and pursued in contemporary society. I rated this about a 3 out of 5 stars. It is a little all over the place when it comes to the structure, but the comparisons to modern day and days past made it for an interesting read. Overall, it's not too shabby and worth the pickup. Kind of staying on the topic of historical books, The Radium Girls by Kate Moore was a must-read this month. It tells the true story of a group of young women in the early 20th century who worked as factory laborers, painting watch dials with radium-based paint. They were told the substance was harmless, but over time it caused devastating health effects, including bone fractures, cancers, and death. Women often in their teens or 20s were exposed to the toxic substance while being encouraged to lick their paintbrushes to sharpen them, to get the numbers and everything right. The book follows their courageous legal battles against the companies responsible for their suffering and highlights the role in the fight for workers' rights and safety standards. It is a tale of exploitation, resilience, and the quest for justice. I rated this a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I'm sure a lot of us reading it forgot a time or two that this is a non-fiction book. The monstrosity of the times is like, I cannot fathom it. And I cannot fathom my jaw falling off due to radium poisoning. Like, how insane is that humans didn't even bat an eye nor think maybe we shouldn't put this on our bodies or anywhere near our skins? But alas, they did. Time and time again. The companies lied, which go figure, and the detrimental damage was done. I could not imagine the pain that these women were feeling, and like, honestly, holy fuck. It is a gory, detailed, and 100% real part of history, so I recommend this to anyone who is a history buff. It was batshit crazy. Staying on the history train, next was Come Fly the World by Julia Cook. This book offers a captivating exploration of the lives of Pan Am stewardess during the 1960s and 70s. Through extensive interviews and meticulous research, Cook delves into the experiences of these women who embodied both glamour and grit in an era of significant social and political change. The book highlights the strict requirements for a Pan Am stewardess, including college education, multilingual proficiency, and physical appearance standards, reflecting the industry's emphasis on the ideals of femininity. Despite these constraints, many stewardesses found empowerment through their roles, gaining independence and experiencing a sense of liberation while navigating the complexities of their professions. Side note, many of the women also had to be single and not married, which was also kind of crazy. In this, Cook also examines the intersection of their careers with major historical events such as the Vietnam War and the Civil Rights Movement, illustrating how these women became witnesses and participants in global affairs. It also was very cool to read this after reading The Women by Kristen Hanna, because they talk about flying on a Pan Am flight from Vietnam in The Women by Kristen Hanna. So this was a nice little crossover. And if you don't know, during the Vietnam War, Pan Am would take the soldiers on their leave for however long they got to have, whether it was a couple days or a week, and then fly them back to where they're supposed to be at. Their involvement in significant operations like the evacuation of children during the fall of Saigon underscores their pivotal roles by traditional service duties, and ultimately Come Fly the World serves as a poignant tribute to the Pan Am stewardess, which that's shedding light on their contributions to the aviation industry and their enduring impact on women's roles in the workforce. And honestly, their outfits were awesome. awesome and cool. And I believe there is a show, I cannot remember the name right now, but it is about Pan Am stewardess, and it has a lot of really big actors in it. Christina Ricci, Margot Robbie, David Harbour, and like a bunch of other really big people are in the show. You should definitely check it out. I rated this a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It basically was just a summary of what life was like during the luxury Pan Am flights. And honestly, I would have loved to fly that company once in my life during their peak. Their uniforms, the details, the attention to making it feel like international travel, no matter where you were, is like incredible. And it's crazy how we have gone from a time of like carrying and comfortable flights to now being crammed into airplanes like sardines, because the airlines want to put as many people in the airplane as they can to make the maximum amount of money without a care in the world. And honestly, like, what a shame. And of course, I couldn't continue Women's History Month without checking out another Kristen Hanna book. This one was The Four Winds. It is a historical fiction set during the Great Depression and Dust Bowl era. It follows Elsa Martinelli, a woman who is forced to make difficult choices to protect her family as they struggle with poverty, environmental disaster, and social upheaval. Elsa and her children embark on a harrowing journey west to California in search of a better life, facing numerous challenges along the way. The novel explores themes like resilience, sacrifice, and the strength in the human spirit in the face of adversity. It is a powerful story of survival and hope, set against the backdrop of one of America's most difficult times. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars, and I don't think Kristen Hanna can miss. And after reading The Women, I was very excited to read this. This book did not disappoint, and as someone who has been born and raised in Oklahoma, this story is a part of Okie history. My ancestors survived it, and some did die from it. This story is all too familiar hearing my Meemaw talk about her Meemaw and her mom's stories. This was a very well-researched and an incredible story of a resilient family, and I don't know how Hannah manages to have us walk hand in hand with these characters, but she has yet to disappoint for me. Another recommended read. I know at this point it seems like this is a very long video. It is. We are 2 books away from the very end of my list. I read, I think, 26 books this month, which is a lot, I know. And I really did stay on topics like history. A Woman of No Importance by Sonia Purnell. This book tells a fascinating story of Virginia Hall, an American woman who became one of the most effective and daring spies during World War II. Despite being born with a physical disability, a prosthetic leg, she defied expectations and rose to the prominence as a key figure in the British Special Operations Executive, the SOE. Operating behind enemy lines in Nazi-occupied France, Hall played a crucial role in organizing resistant movements, gathering intelligence, and aiding the escape of downed Allied airmen. The book highlights her courage, resourcefulness, and determination, shedding light on her largely overlooked contribution to the war effort. I rated this a 5 out of 5 stars. We got so many incredible books this month. Virginia Hall, the badass that you were. This book was an incredible read about her journey as a spy, her journey avoiding capture and kicking Nazi ass. Going from a spy to a double agent and then possibly like a triple agent and beyond when the situation was needed. Like, what a wild woman she was. This was the perfect book to read during Women's History Month, and the fact that she is literally known as the Woman of No Importance is fucking crazy. The very last book of Women's History Month that I had to fucking read was Kinky History by Esme Louise James. It is a fascinating and provocative exploration of the more conventional and taboo aspects of history. The book dives into the lesser known and often overlooked and sometimes scandalous historical figures and practices that have shaped the past. Through a mix of humor and curiosity and well-researched facts, Esme Louise James examines how kink and alternative sexuality have been present in various cultures and time periods, often influencing the societal norms of art and politics. It's an eye-opening read for those interested in the intersection of history and human sexuality. And I rated this a 1 million out of 5 stars because I am a ride or die for Esme. Her journey of breaking barriers of what women can do and research and spend their entire lives work doing is incredible. I loved reading and listening to her narrate this exquisite book, and what a wild and wickedly fun adventure. And I would love for her to keep coming out with books and spreading her knowledge with the world because kinky history is forever and always. And that's it. That's all 26 books that I have read this month, and I hope you find a new favorite or a book that you're like, never mind, I don't want to read that. That sounds stupid. That was Conway hated that one. Not gonna read that. But I hope the other ones that were rated amazing, I hope that you do pick up anything. The one book on my top list, The Women by Kristen Hanna, please, I cannot scream that enough. Please, 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 please. And It's Not Hysteria by Dr. Karen Tang. Please also get a physical copy of that for all of your needs. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. I love doing these monthly book reviews and talking about everything that I have read and sharing and caring with you. Be sure to follow me on all my socials right here, or you can go to conwaytitty.com. That is conwaytitty.com for all of my stuff. Be sure to follow me on Fable and Goodreads. And with that, I hope you have a good rest of your day or night wherever you are. Be sure to hydrate, get some rest, eat some food, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye!